Have you ever noticed how kids hate to walk? There's no faster way to clear a room full of kids than to say, hey kids, let's all go for a walk. Now, if you're going for a hike, that's okay. Or riding bicycles, that's great. But I don't know about your kids, but my boys hated to walk with us. It got you nowhere slow. But walking as an adult has been great. My wife and I 40 years ago used to walk at 2 o'clock in the morning in the little college town in Indiana where we were going to school. We made great plans about our future. And whenever we've had to make a momentous decision, we found ourselves not just talking, but walking as well. And did you know that walking's great for you? It's good for your heart. It's good for your joints. It's good for your mind. In fact, it's the greatest determiner of a long life, whether or not you walk. Well, I'm talking about walking on this second Sunday after Easter because two men are walking down the road, says Luke in his 24th chapter. They're walking to a place called Emmaus. And as they're walking, they're talking current events and politics about how a young prophet named Jesus ran headlong into the powers that be, the Roman Empire, and he was crushed beneath their machinations. We had hoped, they said, we had hoped he would be our Redeemer. Those words, we had hoped, don't they describe a world and a vision that all of us have experienced in our lives? Have you ever had your hopes, your dreams crushed? Have you ever ran headlong onto the rocks of despair? Have you ever had family, friends, or loved ones disappoint you? We had hoped. Well, I've been thinking about a book that I read not too long ago called Nobody Goes to Church Anymore. It's about the fact that in the last 50 years, fewer and fewer people go to church. Gallup poll says about 40% of us go to church, or at least we used to before coronavirus, but I think that number was greatly inflated. I think it's less than 20%. Well, no one goes to church because churches have got a bad reputation, haven't they? Churches are judgmental. Why go to a place when you already feel bad about yourself? It'll just make you feel worse. Churches are homophobic. Churches are full of hypocrites. Isn't it true that we tend to look at going to church like we're going to a police station? All of the bad things we've ever done will be on display there. And isn't it also as true as well that the God who's talked about in church seems so unreal to the lives that we live? Although there is still that longing that we have for a God who loves us and is concerned about us. Two men are walking down the road. They had hopes. They had dreams. They were crushed. And I think this morning is a good illustration that maybe Jesus doesn't go to church anymore either. Where are you going to find him? He's out on the road with those two men talking politics. He's with us in every aspect of our lives. During this time when we can't go to church, some of us clergy types worry, well, maybe people will never want to come back to church. Well, we don't have to worry about that, do we? Because no matter where we are, no matter where we're found, no matter what road we travel, Jesus is always there. You know, the great Johnny Cash sang a song called Would You Recognize Jesus? And I think it goes something like this. If you've never fed the hungry or given clothes to the poor, if you've never helped a stranger who came knocking at your door, if you never sent some flowers to some sick or shut-in friend, well, if you ain't helping none of these, then you ain't helping him. If you've ever seen some children playing ball behind a school, if you've ever seen an old man tilling ground behind a mule, if you've ever stood in silence when you could not hear a sound, well, brother, you've seen him, because Jesus gets around. Well, Jesus gets around on this second Sunday after Easter. He's not in church, and we're not in church either. He's where we are. He's on the road. I was pulling out of Baltimore a couple of years ago, getting ready to get on I-95 to come back up to New York, when a carload of kids pulled right beside me. They were pretty rambunctious, and they were laughing and joking, and they rolled down their window and motioned for me to roll mine down too. And let me tell you, I wasn't sure at all what they had in mind. And one of those kids stuck his head out the window, and he looked at me, and he said, "Jesus loves you." And then they all laughed and just drove off. And I'm just sitting there with my mouth open. Isn't that true that we meet Jesus on the road? Well, you can be that person that meets Jesus as well. When you take a bag of groceries and leave it on the doorstep of someone who's lost their job, when you've called someone who's sick and called them and given them a word of encouragement, it's a way for us to be what we were meant to be, followers of Jesus. We're not in church this morning, but we're on the road. Wait for that experience, that time when we'll be able to get back out there and to be present in the lives of other people, because that's how and where we make a difference. Peace.